welcome or welcome back to the channel. Thanks for coming by. I hope you're good. And welcome to a reading vlog. Now, disclaimer, you're probably going to see this setup in quite a few vlog openings because I have no chill and I've decided to start potentially 4 today because I want to film all the openings and go and do the reading. So if over the next month or so, every time you open a vlog you think, I'm getting deja vu, don't worry, you're not going crazy. I just decided to start them all at the same time. Now, the title will have given this away, and I don't know if anybody cares about this as much as me, but I got a parcel today. And it's probably my most anticipated release of the year. I am so excited. It's from Sci-Fi. I've already taken the outer package off, but I haven't opened it yet, so we're going to open it now. Okay, first up, we have 2 new Sci-Fi bookmarks. I do not believe I have either of those, so that's 2 for my collection. I'm legit about to cry. This is ridiculous. Oh my god. It's Trigun. Okay, now, I know that I've never read this before, so to get this emotional about it is quite ridiculous. But if you've been on the channel for any length of time, you know that Trigun, the series, the new anime and the original anime have been a bit of an obsession for me. So when I found out they were re-releasing the manga, I've been freaking out ever since, okay? And just that, 1 is huge, 2, actually beautiful. So let me take this plastic off. Oh my god. Here it is. So I can't very good. Oh, there we go. Oh, okay. There's the gun. Vash's gun. This is like the most luxurious thing ever. Like it's so freaking nice. Oh my god. Okay. I'm freaking out. Can you tell? Is it obvious? Oh my god, look! Okay. Everything is fine. It has this lovely little, it's got like an actual ribbon. Like, this is insane. So, what is Trigun? Because I haven't said anything, I've just been freaking out. Because I'm going to read it in this video. So it is going to be spoilery because I'm going to get all my feels out. I don't want to put it on the floor. I don't want to put it on the floor. Okay, I can put it up here. Here we go. So this was in the back. I'm going to tuck this into the back of the actual manga. But this is Trigun Deluxe Edition by Yasuhiro Nitao. I probably did not get that right. I should look it up. I will look it up. On the forbidding desert planet of Gunsmoke, a $60 billion double-dollar bounty hangs on the head of Vash the Stampede, a pistol-packing pacifist with a weapon capable of punching holes in a planet. Every trigger-happy psyker in creation is aiming to claim Vash dead or alive, preferably dead. And although Vash is an avowed pacifist, he won't go down without a fight. And when Vash fights, destruction is sure to follow. I'm so... Listen, I am so new to Trigun, right? I feel like I've only been waiting for this for like a year. Like, I only found Trigun via Trigun Stampede last year, and I only really got massively into it this year. So I can't imagine how people that have loved the series for years, since like the 90s when the original anime came out, how they feel about this gorgeous edition. But I'm so freaking excited. So we will of course be reading it straight away. So you can I mean, hang about, even if you're not interested in Trigun, hang about if you want to watch somebody absolutely geek out about something, because I promise you that's what's about to happen. It has been almost a week since we last spoke, and it wasn't intentional. But let me give you an update on where things are, because I actually haven't read this since Wednesday, and it's now the following Tuesday, so that's my bad. Time's just run away from me. Anyway, I am 120 pages in so far. And let me tell you, this is everything I wanted it to be. Because, oh God, I just love these characters so much, okay? And what I'm finding as I read it, I can't hold it up because it's too heavy. What I'm finding as I read it is that the anime, the original anime, was very true to the manga. And I love it. I'm flicking through and I'm like, oh my God, I remember this scene. I remember this bit. Oh, yes, I remember. And it's just, it's so good. So we're currently on the sand steamer. Now the sand steamer is one of my favourite bits from the remake. And obviously it's very different, but the sand steamer, how it's used in the remake, those episodes, my favourites. Love them. Unsurprising, honestly, because in the remake, the sand steamer is kind of the setting for some big Nick moments, for some Nick reveals, for some Nick backstory. So obviously they're my favourites. But in the original, I also really love the sand steamer episodes. So I'm very excited. I'm picking it up again because I already recognise like some of that setup. And it's really, really good. I feel like I need to record some of me actually reading it though, because my reactions have been so good. Like when the Nebraska family turned up, which is like some of the like villain type characters, when they turned up, I was like, oh my God, it's the Nebraska family. Like I really just need to be recording, I think. That's all I really have to update you so far. I just wanted you to know that yes, this is everything I wanted it to be. Yes, I am linking it back to the original anime. I'm seeing that, at least to start with, the anime adaptation from the 90s was done really, really well because its design is very, very close to the mangaka's art style and the storyline was being followed really, really well. And I'm just having such a good time. Such a good time, which is why I'm a little bit bummed that I haven't had a chance to pick it up since that Wednesday. But I'm on holiday this week, so it should be happening and hopefully I'll have a better update for you soon. So I did not have the spoons to host sprints today. It is a Wednesday and recently I have been hosting sprints on a Wednesday night, but I did say that it wasn't definite, like it wasn't a fixed thing. And today I didn't have the spoons, so we're actually doing some backstage sprints and I've just finished my buddy read pages, so it's Trigun time. I'm very excited because I've been wanting to pick this up all week and just time's been getting away from me. Do you know what I've noticed as well? My hair looks brown until the sun is out. Like I swear to God, my hair changes colour from clip to clip. This looks brown, but when the sun's out it looks really red. So I don't know. Anyway, the main purpose for me to pop on was to say that I'm about to read Trigun whilst drinking tea and my Trigun mug. I'm very happy. I'm also going to listen to Trigun soundtrack, so it's going to be a whole Trigun experience. I'm now about 280 pages into Trigun and I finally sat down and actually formulated some thoughts for you, so let's get into it. I think the first 4 chapters are kind of like our setup. They introduce us to 3 of our main characters, so we get introduced to Vash and Meryl and Millie, and we get to know a little bit about their personality and sets up kind of like their journey going forward. As I said in an earlier update, from what I remember, the manga and the original anime are pretty much exactly the same. And it's different in the Trigun Stampede reboot, which what I'm noticing the more I read, because I probably would have picked this up in the anime when I watched the original anime, but now actually kind of taking time and sitting and thinking about it a bit more to do this video, I'm realising like how the reboot kind of took different parts of different stories and kind of mushed them together. So I can understand it in a way why, because I know that like a lot of OG Trigun fans were not like super impressed with the reboot. I think they both have their charms, and maybe that comes from coming into it through Trigun Stampede rather than the other way around, but it didn't affect my enjoyment of the original. I think they both have a lot to offer in their own ways, and they both use the source material in their own ways. Whilst the original anime seems to have followed it as closely as possible, we can see the building blocks for Trigun Stampede in like the first 4 volumes. So one of the differences is the setting. I believe in the manga and the OG anime it is April Town, where our kind of opening takes place, and in Trigun Stampede, which I'm just going to refer to as Tri-Stamp from now on because I'm lazy, in Tri-Stamp it's Genora Rock. Genora Rock is a place from Trigun, from what I can remember. I'm sure it turns up later in the anime, so I'm sure it'll be later in the manga. But they've kind of like merged again those 2 things together. So our similarities are both places have the Nebraska family turn up. So the Nebraska family is this creepy little old guy and his absolutely ginormous son. And I mean like building tall, like he's huge. Well, maybe not building tall, but he's a big guy, right? And he has these fist guns, I guess. Like he can fire a fist on like a big like cable, and then it comes back to him. So he's like modified. Both the towns have a plant that is ailing, and in Trigun basically everything is controlled by these plants. Like everything is powered by these plants, I should say. So if they lose their plant, like the town is gonna fall. Like that's just it. Like, without a plant they can't function as a town. It provides everything they need. It's basically a desert landscape, and plants can provide things like water and power and all this kind of stuff. So they need their plants to survive. So that's the same. There's also a kid called Tonys in both of the openings, and Vash kind of has a connection with that kid. Like in the manga, Tonys and him get on really well, and when Vash eventually leaves, Tonys is very sad to see him go. It's slightly different in Tri-Stamp, which we'll come to, but the other main kind of similarity is that he is helping the town, and then they turn on him for the reward money, but then he saves them, and then it gets slightly different. So in the manga and the OG anime, he saves them, they love him, they collect the reward money, life is good, he is like a hero. In Tri-Stamp, that seems to have happened in the past. Like he's already saved Genora Rock in the past, then he comes back, they turn on him for the bounty, then the Nebraska family turn up, then he saves them, so they kind of side with him again, then something else happens, they turn on him, and then it doesn't kind of get resolved. Like in the OG and the manga, they end up on really good terms, and you know, Tonys is like really sad to see him go. In Tri-Stamp, they do not end on good terms. Like the town is not good when he leaves it, and Tonys is not good when he leaves it. So those are kind of like the differences, and I can see kind of like the building blocks for it. So they haven't completely done away with the opening, which is good because I think this is a really good introduction to the characters. But what they've done is slightly changed the tone of it. So later on in this, because later on in the anime I remember it's slightly starting to get darker, and they kind of bring that darker tone in earlier in Tri-Stamp. I think they don't completely get rid of like the humorous aspects, because there are some good humorous aspects in Trigun, but they just kind of make it a bit darker. And I think in a way, for what they've done, because I think we're only getting 1 more season, right? So I think in a way what they've done is they've set the tone early, they've brought things forward, they've merged things together so they can try and tell more of the story. It's just not going to be in exactly the same like order, if that makes sense, but they're still going to like touch on the big moments. I think one of the things that we learned really early on in the manga is that there has been this massive disaster at a place called July, and that Vash was there, and that everyone blames him for it. But we also know that there were no casualties. So although July, the city, was destroyed, and it was like the 3rd largest city, although it was destroyed, there doesn't seem to have been any casualties. In Tri-Stamp, that happens at the end of the anime, and it does not happen the same way. And I find it really interesting that, having just said about it wanting to bring through a darker tone, I find it really interesting that there are casualties in Tri-Stamp. I think that really shows the clear differences between what they're trying to do. They're trying to bring the darker elements of Trigun into it earlier, and I think that's one of the ways that they've done it. A quick note on Millie, like I didn't know who Millie was when I watched Tri-Stamp, okay? And I saw a lot of people saying like, we really miss Millie, like it's not the same without her. And then I watched the original and I was like, I get it. She is amazing, and she's amazing in this. She's this really tall woman, and she looks quite strong, and she's just the sweetest little thing ever. Like, she's so sweet. Her voice in the original is just, she's really soft. She's well, I wouldn't say, maybe not soft, but she just has this kind of like childlike quality to her. Do you know what I mean? She's really, really sweet. She's really lovely. Would I, hand on heart, say I wish that Tristamp had taken Millie from the beginning and got rid of Roberto De Niro? No. No. I'm really, really pleased that we're getting Millie in season 2. But if it has to be either or, I would rather wait and get Millie in season 2 than completely get rid of Roberto. Because Roberto, I think, fills a really important role in Tristamp. And especially with that kind of darker tone. He's like this reluctant father figure. And I think he brings so much to the core group that I wouldn't want to give that up. Listen, if he hadn't been in it and I just watched it with Millie, I probably would be fine with that. Well, I would be fine because I wouldn't know he existed, right? But now that I know he existed, would I say, oh, actually retcon that, take him out, pretend he didn't exist? No. Because I think he's too important to it. Roberto is this kind of rough, very tired of the world figure who's kind of reluctantly leading these youngsters around and is very kind of annoyed at himself that he begins to get quite attached to them and that he ends up going along with everything. Because I think before this point, we never really know what Roberto's been through, but I think that you can tell that he's seen some shit, right? He's a reporter and he's been working this for a long time. He seems very disillusioned with the world. He drinks a lot. He smokes a lot. He's just very kind of curmudgeonly, I guess, but with an absolute heart of gold. And you can tell that by the end of the season, he really cares for Meryl as much as he like calls her newbie and all this kind of stuff. And it's a point of contention. She just wants him to call her name, and he insists on calling her newbie all the time. But it's kind of like this banter that develops between them, and you can tell that there is a lot of respect between them and a lot of affection. Yeah. So I don't know. Millie, I think, is fantastic because she looks up to Meryl. So in the manga and the OG anime, Meryl is kind of like the leader of the duo. Do you know what I mean? Like, she's the one that's in charge. We might as well talk about it now. One of the things that is different is that in the OG, they're insurers. They work for an insurance company. And in the remake, they're reporters. I think, personally, reporters makes more sense because it makes more sense for them to have been sent out to write an article on Vash than it does for them to be following him behind to clean up after his mess, because he's been classed as a human disaster, like a natural disaster. It does work, don't get me wrong, but logically, again, maybe it's just because I knew them as reporters first, but logically it makes more sense to me for them to be reporters. It makes more sense for them to be out on the road, like following a story. But I am aware that I'm probably biased on that front. But what I do love is that in both ways you can see that Meryl is like a super strong character. And in the kind of OG in the manga, she's the leader. She's the one kind of in charge, and Millie looks up to her. Millie calls her senpai, and like in the anime, she's always going, "Oh, what should we do, Meryl? Like, what should we do now, Meryl?" and things like this. And bless Millie, she's such a sweetheart. But there's not huge amounts upstairs, but she is adorable, and she is just trying her best. And Meryl's the leader, and I think that the way that Meryl starts off in Tristamp as kind of like the newbie, the one that's looking up to Roberto and learning from him, now she's in a position for season 2 to kind of go on and teach Millie that way, and she's going to move up into that role like she is in the original. So in some ways, in so many ways, Tristamp is kind of like a reboot slash prequel. It can't fully be a prequel, but it's that way of kind of like, again, merging things and smushing things together and kind of altering timelines to tell a more complete story, I hope, in 2 seasons and kind of give us the pure over arc. I don't know what's going to happen, but that's kind of what I feel like the vibe is. I feel like that's what we're getting. And so now that Meryl's kind of had that time with Roberto, she's ready to step up, and then Millie's going to come in, I assume, and kind of take on the role that she has in the original. And I'm really looking forward to seeing that, honestly. Like, I love Millie, and I'm very, very pleased that we're getting her in season 2. I'm also very pleased that we got Roberto. Now let's talk about the Sand Steamer arc, okay? So, like I said, I like this arc in both versions. And reading the manga, it really made me think about the things that were missing from both, having seen both, if that makes sense. Like, the things that I really liked from each one and the things that I wish had been kind of carried over. That doesn't make sense. Let me explain. I think it is a crying shame that we do not get Brilliant Dynamite's Neon in the reboot, because that dude is flashy as hell. So Brilliant Dynamite's Neon, or BDN, as we're going to refer to him as, because that's a mouthful, is the leader of the Bad Lads gang. And the Bad Lads gang, in both versions, attack the Sand Steamer. I personally prefer the design of the Bad Lads gang in the reboot. I think, if I remember rightly, in the original anime, even though his name's Brilliant Dynamite's Neon, I don't remember it being like that neon-y. That might be bullshit, but I do remember it being very bright and very neon in the reboot. But the reboot doesn't have BDN. It doesn't have him as the leader. And I think that that is, I want to say, like a missed opportunity, but also looking at the Sand Steamer and the kind of topics that we're covering, the storylines that we're covering, I get it. I get it, because if you brought BDN in, and Kite, the little kid that kind of works with the Badlands gang and kind of gets them on board, and then ends up kind of working with Vash and has this whole backstory where his dad designed the Sand Steamer and he's now an orphan and he just wants the Sand Steamer for himself, sort of thing. I understand how that wouldn't work in the reboot, but I'm still sad about it, because I think he would have been awesome. I would have loved to seen like how they did his design, because the thing with the reboot is that the design is so different. It still keeps like a lot of the heart, but it's different to like most anime. It's a very different style that Orange do, which is the production company. I remember when I first watched it, it took me a few episodes to get into it, because I was like, this doesn't look right. But then once you get into it, I was like, actually, I love this. So it's just very different. So obviously they updated all of the character designs. They did keep, I feel like, the essence of them, but they just did them in their own style. And I would have loved to have seen what they did with BDN, because I bet that would have been so cool. However, there was no room for Kite's story or for the big personality that is BDN. They decided to make the Sand Steamer a setting for a different story arc, and I wouldn't give that up, because I feel like that, I mean, that's two of my favourite episodes right there. The way that they do that is so good, because I haven't talked about it yet because I'm trying to do it as we go through the manga, but in that we learn a lot about Nick's storyline and we get introduced to someone from his past, and I feel like there's quite a lot of emotion going on there, and I just think that if you tried to add in Kite and BDN, it was going to get messy. You're going to take away from some of the emotions, and I understand why they did it. I absolutely love Kite and BDN, and I think that that storyline is so good, but I understand it. You know what I'm saying? Apparently this side is the manga and the OG anime, and this side is Tri-Stamp, because I noticed I keep doing this. So that's just in my head. Okay, sorry. Also, what I noticed, which I didn't pick up on when I watched the anime, is that there's a few moments in this of Kites that end up being given to Nick. And the one that kind of sticks out in my mind is that when they're trying to stop this runaway Sand Steamer, there is this kind of like valve bar type thing that they need to turn. They need to turn it to like, I can't 100% remember, but it's going to help stop it basically. But it is like piping hot. It is piping hot, right? And in the manga and the OG anime, Kite gets into his little suit and they're like, no one can fit, and he just kind of leaps through and goes through all these pipes, gets to it and turns the valve, right? So Kite saves the day. In the reboot, that's Nick. Nick is the only one that is able to get to the valve and turn it off. So it was just an interesting moment. I was like, oh, Right, yes, of course. So there are still like the main elements of the sand steamer. We do have a runaway sand steamer that's being attacked by the Bad Lads gang, and you know, we need a valve, and there's the plant, which we're going to get to. They need to do something about the plant because the plant's like freaking out. Those moments are still there, they're just slightly altered. The plant. This is where we kind of find out that the plants are not just like a plant, they are like a whole creature. And that Vash, for some reason, can converse with the plants. He goes to the plant room and he ends up kind of like helping to calm down the plant. And it is just a beautiful moment, honestly. In the manga, it's beautiful. He's like leaning against her enclosure. They're doing like the forehead and the hand touch, and it's just like a really serene moment. But what comes through more in the manga is the fact that the plant totally stops, and so does Vash. And I mean totally stops. Breathing and everything. There is this moment where they are totally paused, and it's the combination of kind of that and the handle, and then them being able to use the brakes. They finally get the stand steamer to stop. Although actually BDN does have something to do with it. Brilliant Dynamite's Neon. He does have something to do with it. I didn't fully get it from the manga, but if I remember rightly from the anime, he kind of like uses the car or cables to kind of like help pull the sand steamer back, which now I think about it, they also do that in the reboot. They use like these cranes that are on the sand steamer, and they use it to kind of like swing it around and pull the cannon back, and then use that to kind of bring the sand steamer back, if that makes sense. So they have taken so many elements and just reworked it. This is fascinating to me. Like, it's probably not fascinating to you, but it is fascinating to me how they have reworked this into the reboot. It's also a lovely moment with Vash and the plant in the reboot. Ends slightly differently, because in the manga and anime, he's just kind of like fine, and he goes and sits with Kite and then thinks about Rem, and Rem we don't really know from the manga yet, so I'm not going to touch on it. I'm kind of wanting this to be that if somebody's read the manga, they could come into this and not be spoiled for anything. So I'm kind of trying to just keep the spoilers as they've been revealed in the manga as we go, if that makes sense. But Rem has kind of been introduced, and in the kind of reboot, not so much. In the reboot, he kind of has a little fainting spell. So he's not really there for no celebrations. I also find the kind of design of the plants really interesting, because in the reboot they are very beautiful but very otherworldly. Like, it's very obvious that they are not human, that they are not of Earth, if that makes sense, but they're very graceful about it. They're a bit weirder in the manga. Like, they have what I can only describe as unroasted chickens but with angel wings coming out of their backs. That's what it looks like. And so many of them. And I can't get that image out of my head. When I was looking at it, I was like, why is there so many unroasted chickens? Well, you know, like in Looney Tunes, when a bird gets like electrocuted or something, and then they become like just the outline? That didn't make any sense. Do you know what I mean? Am I talking crazy? Do you know what I mean? That's kind of how it looked to me. But it's still oddly beautiful, even with the roasted chickens, because it has like a very otherworldly but beautiful face. And also what I noticed is that the arms were like super long. I just thought that was a interesting difference, because maybe the arms are super long, but I don't remember that from the reboot. The designs, I can see where the inspiration, I can see how the reboot has picked parts of that and inspired it. They did do away with the unroasted chickens, which I personally think is a shame. I've been talking for so long. That's my thoughts so far. I don't know if anyone's going to watch this, but I'm having a great time talking through it, so love that for me. What I will say is that I know I've already said this before, but there is no sweeter feeling than something that you had said was your most anticipated release of the year being just perfect for you. I'm having the best time. It's 10:30 on Friday night, and I do not have a child. He has gone to my mum's, and he's not coming back until Saturday night. And you were supposed to see this vlog tomorrow. That ain't happening. I haven't finished it. That's fine, not worried. To try and finish it, I'm running some sprints tomorrow, and it feels like a crime to do Saturday sprints without sushi. And I don't want to go out in the morning, so it's 10:30 and we're gonna go get sushi now. I got the goods. You're a little bit high because you're propped up in my cabinet handles. I improvised, okay? I got the goods. Now, when I say sushi, I mean the Yo Sushi counter at Tesco's. So it's not like raw fish sushi, okay? But I have my chicken katsu curry rice bowl, which is my go-to. I freaking love that. And I also got my Korean style chicken bites mini pack, which is my normal order, to be honest. It's like my normal order. When I go in, that's normally what I get. I also got this thing, queso salad, sesame seaweed salad with mixed sesame seeds. Now, I don't know. It's why I bought the other things as well, because I was going to get like a couple of mini packs and then this and like make a thing out of it. But I don't know if I'm going to like this. So this is a tester, but I'm really liking sesame stuff at the moment. It's the seaweed part that I'm not sure on, but we're going to give it a try. And then obviously I got custard dorayaki. 2. 1 for tomorrow and 1 for tonight, because I deserve it. And last time they didn't have any and I love them. So not the healthiest, but I'm making an attempt to find healthier options. I have still been being pretty good with my food. So every now and again, you're kind of allowed a little bit of time off. So yeah, but apparently I was more tired than I thought, because I didn't think to get a bag before I went to the sushi counter. So then I was juggling all the sushi, and then I needed to get a bag, and I really struggled to get it off the rack, off the little hanger thing. Finally managed to get one, went over to the self-serve, and what I was trying to do was turn the bag over so that I could scan it with my handheld scanner thing. And what I did instead was scanned the bag and started the machine, and then just stood there and stared at it. And then there was a guy, and I was like, help me. I said, I don't know what to do. I said, I didn't mean to do that. And he said, oh, what you did? I scanned it, and I meant to scan it with this, not this. So he cancelled it for me, no problem. But then I couldn't get back to the thing where you scan with your scanner. And so I just stared at it again. And then I turned around and I was like, how do I get back? And he's like, oh, I don't know that you can. Should we just move you to another till? And I was like, yeah. I said, sorry, I'm causing chaos late at night. I said, I really shouldn't be allowed out. At least not unsupervised. But we are now sprint ready. We're sprint ready, people. I also like the thought of Danny coming in from work tomorrow and opening the fridge and being like, this food was not here. I'm like, no. Because I went out on a late night jaunt. Now I'm going to take this custard dorayaki and I'm going to go and watch some Sweet Home, because I've done a lot of editing today and I really just want to watch some Sweet Home before bed. Because there's nothing more relaxing than a horror show where most of the population has either been turned into or killed by monsters. I'm having a really good time. It's now Saturday, I'm on sprints. I've had my sushi, it was a massive win, apart from the seaweed, which was... it was not it. Not for me. I'm now on sprints and I just finished the first volume of Trigun. And it ended that volume on the little Arcadia arc. And I remember really enjoying that in the anime, because it's basically about this this old couple that live in this, almost like an oasis. There is a, what do they call it? A geoplant. Now the planet is a desert planet, so nothing grows there. So the fact that they have this geoplant and they've been able to grow and it's got bigger and bigger and bigger, they have like this area in the desert where there is actual trees and greenery, and it's like so very rare. And now there is this person, this man called Morgan, who wants it, and he is trying to terrorizing this old couple and trying to get the land off them. I remember really enjoying this because it gives us a really good insight into Meryl and Millie, but in particular Meryl. Vash really kind of takes a step back in this kind of arc. He only really pops up at the end. He's like at the beginning, and then Meryl sends him back to the hotel because she's like, no, you're too much trouble. And then he sneaks in a barrel, hilarious, and kind of covertly saves the day. I know that I haven't really spoken much about Vash, and it's because I genuinely feel like at the beginning of Trigun, you don't get to know too much of Vash. Like, he is there and you do get to know parts of him, but I feel like it's later on where you really get to know him, if that makes sense, because at this point I still feel like he is putting up this front, this facade as this kind of happy-go-lucky love and peace guy, and although that is him, like that is what he wants, there is so much more to him and you don't really get to see that until later, I don't think. So at the moment I haven't really said much about him because this introduction in this first volume, I just don't feel like we've got to see the real part of him yet. In the same way like how now we get to see this other side of Meryl, because she's known as Derringer Meryl, right? She's got like all these Derringers. And that made me think, because that ties into Trigun Stampede, because who uses a Derringer in Tri-Stamp? Roberto. You see? You see? Laying this groundwork for her to kind of pick up these elements of his personality when she kind of takes over as the leader of the little duo. We also get to see more of how sweet Millie is, because she's writing a letter to her family and she lists everyone by name. And I don't just mean like she writes it to her mum and her dad. She writes it to her mum, her dad, her oldest big brother, her middle big brother, her oldest big sister, her middle big sister, her big sister, her little big sister, and then like all of her cousins by name. It's like this big. And she's just really sweet. You can tell that she's really family orientated, and that then kind of flips over with Meryl, who doesn't seem to have that kind of relationship with her family, or is so determined to be independent that she's distancing herself, and then she starts to worry that she's becoming really cold, and she's picking up things from Millie that she kind of wishes that she was also like Millie is very quick to stand up to people if she thinks that they've done something wrong, whereas Meryl will do that if it's like an extreme thing. Like in this, there is this guy who has kind of sided with Morgan, but he's the old couple's son, right? So he is trying to get them to give up the land peacefully because he's worried about what this Morgan guy is going to do to them. And so at one point he points a gun in their direction and Millie beats him up for that. Well, I'd say beats him up. She starts whacking him for that. And Meryl is thinking about that moment and thinking, why didn't I feel that kind of strong emotion when I realised that he was their son? Why didn't I think that? And so she starts questioning stuff about herself. So I really enjoyed that whole arc. Another thing that happens in this arc is that we see this absolutely huge woman. And I mean, like, again, building tall. She like throws other people in these little cannonballs. I say little cannonballs, like I don't even know what they are. They're some kind of modified thing. They're like a cannonball and she throws them, and then there's actually like a person in there. Maybe a person, I don't know. Maybe a robot, I'm not sure. And like her daughter can stand on her shoulder. And I remember that from the anime, but I don't think I ever twigged that that is the rest of the Nebraska family. Because they've taken this job because they want to post bail for the dad and the son. And I just never twigged that they were the Nebraska family. It says it on page. I must have missed that part. So we get to see the other side of the Nebraska family. I wonder whether they'll come into Trigun Stampede. I'm not sure. Because technically, I feel like this arc has been used, because in Trigun Stampede, a bit later, I don't think we're going to get to it in this manga volume, but something happens a bit later and their kind of oasis type place is there, like the geoplant is used then. So I don't think we're going to get this actual Arcadia arc in Trigun Stampede, so whether we'll ever get the other side of the Nebraska family, I don't know, but I would like to see them, to be honest. So that's my thoughts on the first volume. I'm going to go start volume 2 now. I have switched over because I have been listening to the Trigun Stampede soundtrack, which I absolutely love. I think it's so beautiful. but I have found the original anime soundtrack, which I couldn't find before, and for some reason it suddenly just came up as a recommended on Amazon. I'm sure that I searched Amazon Music for it so many times and couldn't find it, but I've got it now, so I'm listening to that original soundtrack and just honestly, and I have another tea in my Trigun mug. I'm living my best life. There he is. There's my favourite. Just knowing he's coming in this volume, I'm so excited. I'm still on sprints, but I just got to this page, which I'm going to try and hold up. I just got to this page. And it says, Diablo, your true character revealed. And I feel like that is exactly how I feel about Vash in the opening of this. I feel like we're starting to see more of his character come through, because he is this really sweet guy. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, let me just move my chair. He is this really sweet guy with this real deep desire to protect people and look after people, 100%. He's also a bit goofy, and you know, he has this love of donuts, which hasn't really come through yet, but I know that's the thing. He has this love of donuts, and he's just kind of like, he just wants to live in peace, you know, 100%. But now there's been a tonal shift. There's been a tonal shift since the beginning of volume 2, to be honest. Like, it suddenly got a lot darker. We've had a severed head in a bag. We've had Legato turn up, who is, oh, I hate that man so much, but he's such a good character, such a good like villainous character, and we've only kind of just been introduced to him, but you can tell already that he is willing to fuck with everything, you know. And this is definitely, like, him showing up is unleashing this other side of Vash's personality, where we're starting to see that there is this desire for revenge, and we've kind of had a bit more information about Knives, and we know what Knives did. We know that Rem was someone that was looking after Vash and Knives when they were children, and that they were on this Project Seeds ship, and that Rem went down with the ship, and it would appear that Knives had something to do with it. We still don't know the full story yet, but it would appear that Knives had something to do with it, and you can tell that Vash is still seethingly angry about it, as he should be. And now we're seeing that other side to Vash, that side that is after Knives for revenge. So on one side you've got the Vash that is wanting to protect people and wanting to just save people, and on the other one you've got this Vash that is driven by vengeance. And the two do obviously coincide. They are one person. I feel like he's hiding that vengeance side. Like, he's not really shown that. If you'd asked Meryl and Millie before, I don't think they would have had any clue that he had this darker side to him. And we're only kind of seeing that now as they are seeing it as well. So it was just great timing, because literally in the last update I said how I hadn't talked about Vash a lot yet because I didn't feel like we were really getting a good idea of his character just yet. And then immediately this other side of him was revealed, and we kind of get a deeper understanding of who he is. So I love that. I love that. We've also got introduced to the first of the Gung Ho Gungs, which is Munev the Gale, I think, and that is a character that is in both versions of the anime. In the original anime, it's very much like it is in the manga, with Vash kind of being imprisoned and Munev the Gale going after him on the kind of, I guess, orders of Legato. In the remake, not so much, because it starts off with you getting to know about him as a child called Rollo and the connection that he has with Vash then, and it's a very different story. So I don't know that we know too much about Munev the Gale in the original, so I'll be interested to see whether that is his storyline or whether it's another kind of merge moment where that Rollo incident is going to come up later on in the manga, and then we'll see how they put them together to make Rollo and Munev the Gale one person, or whether that is the case in the manga. So, okay, gonna continue now. I finished it. Okay. We have things to discuss. So, I believe when we left off, I was talking about how the tone had shifted. And that continues. Like, this is definitely a point, I think, where it starts to deviate a little bit in the anime, because the tone, it feels darker to me. In particular, Legato as a character feels darker. I do not remember him being like as brutal as he is, but I like it. I definitely think that's one major difference between Trigun, the manga, the OG, and the Trigun Stampede is his characterization, because I feel like in Trigun Stampede he's less menacing, like he's less ruthless, I guess. He comes across a bit more like a fanatic, like he comes across a bit crazy in his belief in knives and the Eye of Michael and things like that. So I guess that's a difference, the approach to his character, because he definitely seems darker in the manga and the OG anime, but particularly in the manga. We also have it confirmed that knives was the reason that the ships crash landed and that Rem died, and also that Rem basically saved everyone because Knives had them to be piloted like straight into the planet's surface, and she managed to change that while sacrificing herself. And this is like a big reason that Vash is the way that he is. He will not kill anyone. He doesn't want to kill anyone. So he'll hurt people if he has to. He'll shoot people. He'll fight people, but he will never aim to kill. And that is like the whole way through this. We see that he has not once in this manga so far aimed to kill anyone, but we're also given the impression that the one person that he would be willing to break that vow for is Knives. Like he is quite willing to kill Knives. We also get that full page reveal of just exactly what this life has done to Vash, because he's incredibly scarred. And I think that, well, in fact it's said like this is the kind of price that he pays for not like killing people, because he refuses to kill and they have no such qualms. Like he's constantly getting more hurt than the people that he's fighting, but he's managing to survive that still, but he is like paying a price for it. And one of those is the fact that he has a prosthetic arm, which up until recently we weren't aware about until he kind of loses the prosthetic in his fight with one of the Gale. We also get to meet another Gung Ho Gung, which is E.G. Mine, and it tickled me how little page time he had, because he's quite a big part in Trigun Stampede. I say big part, like he plays a big part in the episode, and I was just really surprised at how little he was on page. And his kind of storyline is very different in Trigun Stampede. Like he basically is holding the whole of Jinora Rock hostage at this point, which is not how it is in the manga. But we are at Jinora Rock. We have arrived at Jinora Rock. Not at this particular point, but a little bit further on, they do go to Jinora Rock, and this is where kind of like the big showdown happens. So we meet the third Gung Ho Gung, which is Dominique the Cyclops, and again, I don't remember it being as dark in the anime. I remember them having like the fight and everything that goes along with that, but I do not remember her dying. I don't remember, but it has been a while since I watched the original, so I don't remember, but I just don't recall that. And her reasoning being that Legato would basically do worse just furthers this idea of what an awful person he is. I do remember Legato's showdown with the slavers, and that is really good in both versions. It's not in Trigun Stampede, but it's really good in the manga and the OG anime. And that's the first time we get a proper display of Legato's powers and what he's capable of. And honestly, I find his ability absolutely terrifying. The way that he can control people's bodies basically to get them to do whatever he wants and hurt themselves, it's just awful. And then, as you saw, Nicholas D. Wolfwood finally arrived. And very soon after he arrived, I felt like there was a very clear divergence between what the anime did and what the manga did, because I don't know whether the anime used some of the Trigun Maximum, because I've not read that yet, but it definitely has more between him being introduced and the end of the anime, and it's not the same as in here. So to start off with, it's the same. They find him in the desert and he kind of like talks his way into getting cheap travel and talks about being a priest, and he has his moment with the little kids where he's kind of showing this softer side to himself, and he kind of meets Vash and they have the funny moment on the bus where they're like just laughing at each other and all this kind of stuff, and then he leaves. Okay, now that does happen from what I remember in the anime. He does leave and then they meet up again later on. But then there's like all these other things, and at the end of this manga there are some side stories, which did become episodes in the anime because I remember them. And there is definitely stuff in the anime that has not happened so far in the manga. But this big showdown at the end of this volume, I remember parts of it, but not all of it. I remember obviously the showdown with Dominique the Cyclops. I don't remember Nick joining up with the Gung Ho Gungs. I don't remember it being like shown in the anime. If I remember correctly, it's talked about later, like he said that he was working with them or something, but I don't remember him actually like joining up with Legato and the others. I certainly don't remember Knives' like rebirth. I don't even remember it being said that Vash had hurt Knives before and that he needed like a whole new body. He does not look like that in the anime, 100%. The bit with the gun, with the angel wing gun at the end, I remember that for sure. I remember that moment. It's amazing. But the bits in between with like Knives' new body and how he looks and all this kind of stuff, I do not remember that at all. I do think in particular with Nick, there must have been quite a bit taken from Trigun Maximum for the end of the OG anime, because there is a lot of stuff that is not in this. There's some big moments which I already knew were not going to be the same anyway, but they're not even here yet. So I'm kind of wondering what was available when they made that anime. Like, did they just have this and then they spoke to the mangaka and asked like, what are some of your plans? Let's see if we can incorporate them. Or had Trigun Maximum started and they took bits and pieces from that? I don't know, but I'm intrigued. I might look that up. So what are my overall thoughts? 5 stars. 5 freaking stars. This was everything I wanted it to be. Like, I remember when I watched the anime, the original anime, thinking that it did start a little bit slow and that it was a bit more comedic than I thought it was going to be. Now that I've read the manga, I understand. That's definitely how it starts. But I like the fact that it becomes darker as you go on, as more gets revealed. Because now, at this point, what do we know? We know that Vash and Knives are over 150 years old. We know that they are not human. We know that Knives and Vash are basically at war with each other, and that Knives has some kind of grand plan that Vash is trying to stop. We've met some really great characters. We've met Legato and the Gung Ho Guns, and we've got still loads more of those to contend with. We have met briefly the Doctor, who was kind of shown in one panel, and he, I'm sure, will come into play with it. We've met Meryl and Millie, and we've seen kind of them start to bond with Vash. We've of course met Nick, who we can already tell is going to be a kind of morally grey character, and there are a lot of questions to be answered. We've met Knives, our main antagonist, and we've of course met Vash. Vash is such an interesting character to me. From Trigun Stampede to the OG anime to the manga, he is so complex, and I love the fact that we've got to see that come through. So Nick even calls him out on one point because he does something that makes Vash smile, and he's like, oh, you can smile for real. He said, you put on this like false cheer, I knew it was fake. And that's kind of how Vash has been living his life, because he's a wanted man. He's had like a bounty on his head, like people have been trying to kill him. Everywhere he goes, things go wrong, and he ends up in all these awful situations. And the guy is just trying to do the right thing all the time. He believes in love and peace. He wants to protect people. He wants to honour Rem's memory and her sacrifice. And he's constantly being dragged into these situations, and he's constantly having to go up against his brother Knives. And as Legato gets introduced, and the Gung Ho Gungs, and Nick, his kind of counterpoint almost, you start to see these other sides of him that is not so happy, not so cheerful. And it's not even just that he's after vengeance. There is a deep sadness in Vash. If you think about it, for 150 years he's basically been alone because he lost Rem. He might as well have lost Knives, and he's been hunted and blamed, and he's outlived probably a lot of people that he would have been friends with. So you've got this main character that just wants to do the right thing, yet always finds himself in like the thick of the trouble. There is a lot of Christian and religious imagery in Trigun. I'm not going to go into it too much because I feel like we're only scraping the surface of it in this omnibus, but I know it's going to come into play more. But what have we seen so far? Well, we've had talk of an angel wing gun, but what have we had so far? We've had the angel wing gun. We've had the plants themselves, the imagery, they do seem to have like the wings. I feel like knives when he's reborn. There's something about him that says kind of otherworldly, but it leans more into like angel and things like that to me personally. And of course we have Nick, the priest, with the big cross, which I'm super surprised that we don't know more about that yet. So genuinely cannot freaking wait for the next one to come out. Like, when is it? Is it soon? I had the absolute best time reading this and making this vlog, because being able to sit down and actually talk through the things that I was thinking and the connections that I was making was really fun for me. I like this series a lot. So that's it. I don't know if I'll do this for everyone. I do have fun making the connections and stuff, but I'm not sure. We'll see. We'll see. But if you've made it this far, congratulations. Well done. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope you found it interesting. Maybe I pointed out some connections you hadn't made. I don't know. If there's anything that you think I didn't pick up on, please let me know in the comments below. If you just want me to know you're here, that purple heart is always appreciated. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're not already subscribed and you'd like some more content from me, remember to hit that button. Leave a like if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!